Welcome everyone to the good, the bad, and the trashy for the spring 2020 anime season. We are gonna dive right into this stellar season of anime with hearts aglow and face masks on. But do be warned that, unfortunately, due to the volatility of everything right now with the ever-present COVID-19 problems that some of these anime have, can, and will be delayed. With all the pleasantries out of the way, let's get into the bad side of things this season. The bad side of things this season consists of pretty much one show, and even I was a little hesitant to put it in this section, but due to personal preference, I'm just gonna go ahead and stick it in here anyway. That show being Gal and Dino. I don't even really know where to begin with this one. On the one hand, it can be considered a bold, artistically focused mixed media project, and on the other hand, it's bad. Just bad. The show is on my bad list because of personal preference. I'm not gonna crap all over it, but it really just makes no sense to me and honestly creeped me out more than anything. The premise is, as you could have deduced, a Gyaru picks up a dinosaur and begins living with it. It's a mainly silent show punctuated by sound effects and gag tracks to show the dino's emotions and actions in a very similar vein to Scooby-Doo sound effects and other cartoons. The first half of the episode is animated and tells a brief story, followed by the other half of the episode being filmed in a live-action format where a middle-aged man reenacts the same exact scene with a life-size dude in a dinosaur costume. Honestly, the whole thing should probably be watched and enjoyed, I suppose, on something like Acid or DMT, as surely that's what the creators were on when they crafted it. Again, all personal opinions. The show is really whack. End of story. My favorite section to dive into, pardon the pun, is always the trashy section. Trashy does not mean don't watch the show. It is merely a warning to those of you who don't share the same mindset as me of, sometimes you just need a show that is utter trash to laugh at in the midst of other anime you have to invest yourself in. I consider the trash anime to be a brain break, something I can watch and enjoy without any life signs in my head. This season's cake winner is without a doubt Princess Connect Redive. Whoop, there's the pun. The show is based off of a mobile app, which is always a good way to end up with a trashy anime, and I really don't know where to start with this one. It could have been great, like, really great, because it shares the director of Konosuba, probably my favorite isekai and comedy anime. It's very apparent that he's a part of it, between the physical humor, character design, and other aspects, but the show falls flat for me in several ways. But let me back up a tad. Our protagonist is Yuki, a former hero who seems to have died somehow and been reincarnated sans memories to a different world in need of a hero. Due to circumstances that aren't well explained, the goddess of the world is out of commission and can't guide him herself, so she sends a young elf girl named Kokoro to guide Yuki in her stead. Kokoro is precious and deserves protection at all costs, just saying. Anyways, she finds our hero laying on his back in a field in the process of getting eaten by some of the wackiest looking wolves I have ever seen. They repeatedly throughout the episode appear and drag off Yuki, serving as a running gag that really just gets old after the first 2 times. After dusting off Yuki and waking him up, it's apparent that no one running this show knows what the hell memory loss is actually like, as Yuki is essentially a baby and can't even talk, much less function as a hero. He is honest to God dumb as rocks, and really hard to like because of it. Kokoro is enamored with him and tries her hardest, bless her soul, to guide him through the world. Towards the end of the first episode, they go on their first quest together to gather mushrooms and encounter the ditzy princess of the land, Justiana von Astria. I'm probably butchering that. Justiana is, as I mentioned, incredibly ditzy, and when they find her, she appears to be dying of starvation. After eating all of their food, she decides to help them gather mushrooms, and thus their little party is born. Eventually, towards the end of the episode, Yuki has a flashback and regains some of his powers, yada yada. It's cool and well animated, and honestly it just comes way too late to save the show for me. Maybe eventually I'll change my mind about this show, but for right now my opinion is brain off, Princess Connect on. Now we're really getting into the good side of things, and we're coming in at the last on the recommended list is a show with the most yaoi bait premise since Free, the Millionaire Detective Balance Unlimited. Oh boy, this show is whack. But it's so crazy and intriguing despite its tones that I couldn't help but recommend it. Daisuke Kanbei has already quite literally taken the internet by storm. Post first episode, he became the number 4 search on Twitter and has already amassed a cult following of otaku women claiming he was the best thing since sliced bread. To explain who Daisuke Kanbei is, well, you'd need some long change, which he has in spades. He's bored. Yes, bored. So he decides to buy his way into the modern crime prevention headquarters as a detective. There he meets Haru Koto. I'm so bad with last names. A straight-laced, hard-working detective recently demoted due to issues working with others. Haru takes an instant disliking of Daisuke. As to Daisuke, no cost is too big when he can just throw money to make the problems go away. Daisuke is as reckless as they come due to the power of money behind him, and Haru can't keep up with his new coworker as the stakes and mysteries grow more tense. The show is leaving a lot of room for character development, which is good since they need it. However, how they'll do it in just 11 episodes remains to be seen, but the powerhouse of Cloverworks and Aniplex has shown time and again that they can make one hell of a series. Cloverworks being known mostly for their hotly debated latter half of Darling in the Franxx, the hyper-popular Promised Neverland, and my second favorite anime of all time, Rascal Does Not Dream of Bunny Girl Senpai. The show also hosts the vocal talents of my all-time favorite Japanese voice actor, Mamoru Miyano, the voice behind the titular Okabe Rintaro of Steins Gate, Rin Matsuoka of Free, Osamu Dazai of Bungo Stray Dogs, Tamaki So of Oran High School, Host Club. Is anyone else seeing a pattern here? Yaoi bait. Anywho, this show may prove me wrong and end up being spectacular. However, for those of you now convinced to watch it due to the good old coronavirus, this show will be delayed following the 3rd episode. Oops. If you know most anime reviewers here on YouTube, there is usually one premise for an anime that really unites us all, and that is cute girls doing cute things. Diary of Our Days at the Breakwater hits the mark beautifully, with cute girls doing fishing things. Hina is a Tokyo girl thrust into a seaside town she's really only visited in her childhood. The move has been slightly jarring to her, as she's not fond of bugs or fish, both of which the town has plenty of. However, she has her knitting to keep her happy, and is looking forward to joining the handicrafts club when she begins high school. That is, until she runs into her senpai, Yuki Kuroiwa. Yuki is a bumpkin, spending her days fishing and having fun in her hometown. She's the president of the Breakwater Club at their school, and she takes Hina on a whirlwind of a fishing trip, eventually coercing her via octopus to give the Breakwater Club a try, much to Hina's dismay. School becomes a worry for Hina, and she bemoans the loss of her chance to join the Handicrafts Club. Nevertheless, she makes good on her promise and shows up at the Breakwater Club. There, she is reunited with her childhood friend Natsumi, who bursts with joy at the prospect of rekindling their friendship via the Breakwater Club. After reluctantly going out with them on their after-school fishing trip, Hina is swept up in the fun and excitement of fishing with her new friends. It's all very cute and fluffy and just what I needed this season after watching Gleipnir. This is the second anime this season to be helmed by Doga Kobo, and with the former assistant director of both Yuru Yuri and Umaru-chan at the wheel, it is sure to be packed with cute stuff, which again is more than welcome on my recommendation list. Our 8th place is Hakushi Koto, and it is by far my heartwarming anime winner for this season. It has a simple, genius premise, that is, of a father too ashamed of his lewd manga drawing to let his daughter ever catch wind of it. Our hero father is Goto Kakushi, a loving, hardworking, single dad of the apple of his eye, Hime, basically the equivalent of naming your child Princess. He heads off to work every day with a suit and a briefcase, telling his daughter of his exploits in business. However, he actually wanders up the hill from his house, changes clothes Superman style in a burlesque outfit store, and spends his days holed up in a manga studio penning his serialized work. According to his assistants, he has come a long way since Hime was born, since originally he could only draw when he was stark naked, and they can tell how much he loves his daughter and only wants the best for her. The series is adorable, and Hime is precious, a very adoring daughter that would love nothing more than to know what her father does when he's gone. Her friends at school form a little detective agency after catching wind of strange goings-on up the hill, and so Goto's simple plans have to become ever more complex to keep his curious daughter from knowing his business. It evokes a similar father-daughter feel as Sweetness and Lightning, but with a much more humorous approach to his character development, and I am eating it up personally. Though I don't have any children of my own yet, it's nice to see an anime that focuses on the sweeter things in life, and the great relationships parents can garner with their children. I'm surprised the studio, Agia Do, had time to make this as well as they did, considering they are also the studio behind the ongoing fan favorite, Ascendance of a Bookworm, but they are killing the game with post-series. However, I will warn you, this show has shown signs of a slightly darker undertone, so I am not sure if it's going to maintain its happy father-daughter romance thing, but that remains to be seen, and all in all, I think the ultimate message of the show is still going to be how much parents can do for their children. Our surprisingly only isekai for the list is actually a bit of departure from the bog-standard dude dies and is reincarnated as the most powerful existence of all time that has 37 hot interracial girls vying to be in his harem, and is instead a wave of new isekai, one where the MC is instead transported to their favorite otome or gal game. My Next Life as a Villainous, All Routes Lead to Doom, covers the story of Katarina Klaus, a spoiled duke's daughter who, after hitting her head on a rock, remembers she was actually a tree-climbing, rebellious otaku who died the day after staying up playing her favorite otome game. The game was called Fortune Lover, and as she slowly remembers more and more, she finally realizes that she has been reincarnated as none other than the Villainous of the game. Much to her dismay, she remembers how all of the routes in the game lead ultimately to her horrible demise. So the story shifts now to a game of survival, with Katarina using her vast knowledge of the game to avoid the death flags and win herself a happy ending. So far in the show, it has been covering the life of the younger Katarina, but I know from reading a bit of the manga and from the OP that she will clearly have her time as the grown-up Katarina, and man, this show is a riot. Despite its somewhat grim motivations, the show is presented as largely comedy, and it does so very well via the talented voice acting and animation, which I personally was expecting due to the studio being Silver Link, the talented studio behind shows like Kokoro Connect, Non Non Biori, and Watamote, and also with Katarina being voiced by Maya Uchida, the voice behind Rika Takahashi from Love, Chunibyo, and Other Delusions, as well as voicing Hiyori from Noragami, and many more. All in all, this is probably my favorite humorous anime from the season, and definitely one of the better isekai to come out recently, besides maybe Ascendance of a Bookworm. Number 6, Gleipnir. Gleipnir was hard to rank and hard to watch, but it bears placement on this list for how good it really is despite its extreme tones. Shuichi Kaguya is a hard-working high school boy with a dark secret. He is really a monster. A huge, stuffed animal-esque monster with large red eyes, massive sharp teeth, and a keen sense of smell. He doesn't seem to remember when he became this, but the guilt and depression of the loss of his sense of self have driven him to despair. It is then that he meets Kureya Aoki, a sadistic, self-serving girl who cares nothing for the people around her. After he saves Aoki from a fire of her own creation, a suicide attempt after being unable to reach her sister, who is also a monster, she latches on to Shuichi and essentially forces him to help her, as otherwise she will report his attempted rape, I'll touch on this later, and the fact that he is a monster. This show is unabashedly dark, covering themes of depression, anxiety, rape, abuse, and suicide in the first episode alone. It's no high school romance anime that one would expect in the spring season, and that's another reason it has made such an impact on me, at least. The characters are all self-serving and malicious in some way, which makes it hard to find someone to root for. Not that that's a necessity by any means. Shuichi's struggle to maintain his morality despite what he is admirable, but comes across as being largely futile. And Aoki's deviousness and sadism is terrifyingly well portrayed, and seems to be inclined to make the viewer examine their own darker parts. I haven't read the manga or know the future to see the rest of the show, but for right now I suppose my issue is that it tackles all of these dark issues without any visible hope for redemption or even solution for the issues it poses. Shuichi is largely hormonal, and it takes form in his failed attempt at raping Aoki after rescuing her. He makes it as far as pulling her panties down and unbuttoning her shirt before his own morals and the arrival of the fire department urges him to leave. All in all, despite its star-studded cast, great director, and theme song performed by one of my favorite artists of all time, Millie, this show is hard for me to watch and therefore is lower on the list. Number 5, Tower of God. Tower of God is an anime that was overhyped for me personally. A great many of my friends are avid fans of the webtoon, so when a deal was struck between Crunchyroll and Line Webtoon to produce an anime for Tower of God, my friends rejoiced from one end of the universe to the other. Bam is a boy. Once trapped beneath a huge tower, he was rescued by Rachel, a girl with a past just as mysterious as Bam's. He feels nothing but devotion to her, but her selfish decision to climb the Tower of God, a place where it is rumored that at the top you can have anything granted to you, leaves him stranded and worried. He then seemingly wills himself into the tower to follow his lost companion. There he meets the caretaker, who honestly reminds me of, an enemy in Hollow Knight or something. He gets eaten by a dragon, he goes through a battle royale. It's all crazy, and the amount of characters that they've already added is honestly insane. This summary may be mundane, but it really is an incredibly wild ride of a show so far, and though the character development and introduction, as I mentioned, seems a bit rushed, so far, at least compared to the webtoon, the pacing really isn't suffering a whole lot. Whether it holds up to fans' expectations or the eyes of the scrutinizing anime lover remains to be seen, but Telecom Animation Film, a studio with which I really can only associate Orange as a product of theirs, seems to have really thrown themselves in animating this show. Hopefully this bodes well for more webtoons and other internet-based manga to be made into real shows. Listeners takes the top spot in my hype train this spring season, but wasn't enough for the top spot in itself. Its uniquely grungy animation style and memorable character design, as well as its music-centric, battle-scarred world-building, immediately caught my attention and likely will keep it throughout the show's run. The show is an original work, animated by MAPPA, the studio behind such anime as Terror in Resonance, Kakegurui, and more recently Dororo. Additionally, it was created by Jin, the brains behind the Kagero project, which in turn spawned Makaku City Actors, which is one of the most memorable anime I've ever watched. The story follows a young boy named Echo, as he lives and works in Liverchester. The city is a literal trash heap, overflowing with garbage from other cities around the world. Echo picks through this trash for a living, eking out treasure. After work, he goes to grab one last piece of trash and instead discovers a mysterious girl buried in the garbage. Don't we all wish? After taking her home to his sister's pub, it's discovered that not only does she have no memories, but she also could be a mysterious player. A player is the only thing able to fight the world's enemy, the Earless. These giant, shadowy, rat-looking creatures that are honestly large and terrifying. Players can harness the power of equipment, machinery able to transform into a mech-like amplifier to battle the Earless with the power of hard rock. The first episode could have been punchier, but for what it was, it grabbed me hard and I don't want to let go. Especially with the main girl Miu being voiced by Rie Takahashi, the voice of Best Girl in the Universe Megumin from Konosuba. Unfortunately, I can't fully mention the show without mentioning its peer Eureka 7, which this anime shares a director, a studio, and clearly some inspiration from. Eureka 7 was a very unique anime whenever it came out, and still continues to be despite MAPPA's attempts to replicate it. They seem to actually be doing a decent job at getting the same feel with listeners, but I'm hoping that at some point it will diverge and become its own anime. This third spot is probably going to push some people's buttons that I placed it so highly. Wave Listen to Me is possibly one of the most beautiful train wrecks of a show I've ever seen. Its insane, cold opening gripped me with a mixture of awe and bewilderment as I watched this crazy blonde chick wrestle a bear whilst reading a radio show script. To back up, the story follows Minari Koda, an older girl recently dumped who seeks solace at the bottom of a glass. Luckily, for her, there's a man at the bar that seems willing to listen to all of her ramblings. To her chagrin, the man is a radio producer and secretly records her drunken antics to play over the airwaves. Her uncanny talent for speaking fluidly without stumbling is an instant hit, and due to her persistence, she lands an amateur radio show. This show really isn't some high school harem romance isekai whatever. This show has a much more mature feel to it. The characters are slower and more thoughtful, sometimes at least. The interactions seem more fleshed out, and they contrast well with the brash, over-opinionated heroine Koda. This show promises a pretty intriguing slice of life. Sorry. This show promises an intriguing slice of life, backed by stellar voice acting and Sunrise's excellent animation. Number 2, Pod A Tron showcases a wild variety of characters in its opening minutes. It evokes a callback to an older cartoon I watched on Boomerang called The Wacky Races, a slapstick, never-ending car race between some of the most unique cars and characters I've ever seen. However, behind this base premise lurks the promise of something more. Tale of a boy too smart for his own good, and a samurai too cowardly to be of any use. How these two will learn and grow together are definitely what will keep me coming back, along with the promise of some good, clean, crazy car action, and even more character development via the show's already memorable supporting characters. The show is animated by PA Works, an animation company with such titles under its belt as Angel Beats, Another, and Tari Tari. Speaking of Tari Tari, this show shares the same director, Masakazu Hashimoto, and Appare himself shares the same voice actor as Tanjiro from Demon Slayer. With a slap of an OP and a lot of character development sure to come, this anime should prove very entertaining. The show has teased the brace's beginning, but has jumped backwards in time in order to develop the characters, which to me was a wise decision, as I feel it'd be hard to develop them had it been solely focused on the race, like trying to watch a more emotionally invested version of Mad Max Fury Road. And finally we come to number 1, Sing Yesterday for me. Sing Yesterday for me is far and away my top anime of the season for many reasons. First, it is absolutely stunning visually, a genuine treat for the eyes, and with God, dog it. First, it is absolutely stunning visually, a genuine treat for the eyes with even the background animation showing an immense amount of purpose and care, and that attention to detail serves even better its gloomy tone. Second, it's going to be messy and romantic, and those two together make me gleefully depressed, which is probably my favorite mood to be in. The show follows Rikuo Uozumi. Man, I cannot do these names. A college graduate that proceeded to waste his life following graduation. He has an interest in photography, but seems to be either unsure of himself regarding it or just genuinely doesn't want to pursue it. He works a dead-end job as a convenience store attendant and generally wanders through life as a borderline hikikomori. Enter Haru Nanaka, a crow-toting, yes, crow, high school dropout with her own set of issues and unprecedented ongoing crush for our boy Rikuo, a crush she has seemingly had since middle school. Now we've set the scene for a beautiful little oddball romance with this, but the wrench in the mix comes in the form of Rikuo's college crush, Shinako Morinome, who has recently moved back into the area to work at a high school, the one Haru dropped out of. Rikuo, of course, holds an unrequited love for Shinako, which you can already tell will lead to a mess. To make matters even more tangled, our final character in this soon-to-be love quadrangle is Ro, Shinako's childhood friend, who takes a guardian stance against Rikuo's advances to Shinako. You know we're in for a nightmare of a romance here, as all of these suffering, estranged people suddenly come together, but at the same time it promises an intriguing late-blooming coming-of-age story, one where all the characters will surely grow personally, as well as together and probably apart. The last reason for my almost assured love for this show is the fact that I know it's in good hands. The studio, Doga Kobo, being known for shows like Engaged the Unidentified, Tada Never Falls in Love, and Plastic Memories, they've proven time and again that they know how to set a tone via their art. Add to that the fact that this show shares a director with the aforementioned 3 shows, all of which were some of my favorites, and I feel like this show is a veritable recipe for success. To finish it off, we'll give you an honorable mention or two. I'd like to thank you for watching this video and hope that it helps you decide something to watch this season. I'm bad at ending these, but I appreciate the time and hope you enjoyed my first video. To finish it off, we have an honorable mention, and that would be Arte, a show I really wanted to put in the recommended list, but had issues with it personally, so bumped down to this section. In the Renaissance period, one of my favorite periods of art history, in case you were wondering, art abounded and painters and artisans had studios left and right, especially in Florence, Italy. Here we find Arte, a young nobleman's daughter with a passion for art and a drive to be something more than a rich girl. After her father's death, her mother begins pushing Arte to give up her passions in the pursuit of a good husband, but Arte refuses and sets out to become an apprentice to an artisan. She's met with heavy backlash as females are seen as unfit to work in a typical depiction of pre-women's rights eras. It is here that we find my gripe with the show. The show is well made, Arte is cute and lovable, and so far the supporting cast is excellent. However, the show focuses way too much on Arte doing everything to show she can do things a man can, and it does it poorly. Arte continually defies logic, and even is rude to those just trying to be nice, just simply because she is trying to, I guess, defy everyone's presuppositions about her. Before I get cancelled on my first ever video for being an anti-feminist, hear me out. I have nothing at all against women, their rights, their positions in society today, etc., and I agree that the way they were treated in the past was horrible and sexist. However, this show next to vilifies everyone for their treatment of Arte, and the whole show revolves around this idea of her smashing the patriarchy, for lack of a better phrase. I simply wish that the show trusted its setting and characters better to tell a story, rather than resting on this push-button topic. It's still got more episodes to go, of course, so maybe it will depart from this trend, but for right now, it gets a very honorable mention from me. Thank you again for watching.